Hey, everybody. Welcome. I am Hunter Lovins, uh, co-steward of COPx. We will wait a few minutes and let more people come aboard. Thank you all for being here. I will shortly introduce Paul Rowland, who is the Chief Operating Officer of Environment Next. And in many ways, the reason that COPEX exists, Paul and his foundation have been supporting us, and Hans Josef has been supporting us as well, which we truly, truly appreciate. Maybe give it another 2 minutes. Wow, seeing lots of old friends coming aboard. Thank you all for being here. And we're a minute 20 into it, so give it about 30 seconds and we'll begin. We had 130 registered to be a part of this, but then I suspect a lot of people register to get the recording. And as you saw, this is being recorded. I can send it out to any of you who desire. We will also post it to the COPX website, which is www.copx.global. The chat box is open. Feel free to post questions there. And wow, lots of people hopping on. Hey, y'all. Hunter Lovins here. We're waiting a minute or two to let everybody come aboard, and then we'll nod our heads and be bucking. And with that, Paul, do you want to kick us off? This is Paul Rowland of Environment Next. Environment Next has been supporting COPX pretty much from its official inception, which we truly appreciate. Hans Josef has also been supporting COPX. And Paul, over to you. You're muted again.
Now that's a great start to a moderating tour. Welcome everybody. And thank you, Hunter, for the kind introduction. To everybody who's joining us online and continues to join us online, I'd like to welcome you to COPX, to the Conference of People, and people who are concerned about and want to see action on climate change. And, I think by way of introduction, I think many of us watched last year in December as the other the Conference of Parties in Brazil overheated both rhetorically and physically, literally bursting into flames at one point. And I think that's a kind of a metaphor for the intergovernmental process as it stands. Not because there aren't players in good faith, and we'll get to that a little bit later when I introduce Martin, but that the international intergovernmental process is stalled largely because of players who don't want to see solid action on moving from fossil fuels as our primary energy source globally. And we saw petrostates and other countries that are under the influence of the fossil lobbyists, 15,000 people associated with fossil fuels attending the COP. And I think that lots of us who have been in this space and working towards saving the planet for years, and Hunter and Martin and Hans Josef are, and I assume many of you are all in that category. who have been working for decades really to address this problem. I think a lot of us are kind of fed up with that. And so COPx is a way of working for people to work on climate change and work together. We know that there are all kinds of initiatives at the country level, at the community level that are happening out there. And we saw some of those come together at the COP in Brazil, where there were things happening on the sidelines that have brought results. And that really is the benefit of bringing all those people together at COPs, is that a lot of action happens on the sidelines. And I know that Hunter is one of the primary movers of some of that action, and we can ask her for some comments on that later. One of our prior webinars was, in fact, on the COP in Brazil and what has happened with that. So Hunter was one of our speakers on that. But I think, speaking to being fed up and looking to be more proactive and more positive on the front of climate change. I think we've also seen in the past year plus um, a divergence on the policy front with many member states of the COPs moving in the wrong direction. And we it is time to counteract that and to move towards some positive things. There is good news, of course, and there's good news on the front of renewable energy, and that's primarily what our conversation is going to be about today. Although we can also get into inspiration and what's happening at the community level where all of you live. At this point, I'd like to introduce our conversation today, and then I'll step aside. The conversation is our guest today is Hans Josef Fell, who's a climate activist, who is an environmental activist, who's a former member of the Bundestag, and a contributor and member of our COPx family here. And also Martin Frick, whose previous roles with the UNFCCC has also helped to drive him to alongside Hunter and some others co-found COPx. And I'll let Martin take over in a minute, but Martin is somebody who has spent a lot of years inside the factory that makes the sausages. And so he's seen a lot of how the intergovernmental action or the intergovernmental discussions lead either to action or to inaction. And so I think he's the perfect person to introduce and to begin the conversation with our guest, Hans Josef, today. So, Martin, maybe a few words from you and an introduction of Hans Josef, and the floor is yours.
Sure. Thank you, Paul. My first COP was 2008. That was COP 14 in Poznan. And that was the one between Bali for the older ones of you, where we decided on the Bali roadmap, and the hopes were high for the COP in Copenhagen. And as we all know, that went badly against the war. And that was actually the moment I had the idea to do something different. And that was the moment when COPx really was born. And COPx is supposed to be the individually decentralized, organized answer to the COP. Because the COP in the recent years, and Paul said it very eloquently, has become more and more a forum for the oil producing countries and not the locomotive it used to be under Christiana Figueres and before it Ivo de Boer, to create climate action. Now, the idea is very simple. We don't need another convening ground. We can convene ourselves, and all of you living in communities and are community leaders. And so in empowering community action and individual action. I couldn't think of any better person to talk to than Hans Josef Fell, because Hans Josef has started on the community level. He is still working on the community level, basically on energy independence. And I recall from many conversations that we had that one of the big questions, and I'm sure Hans Josef, you're going to speak about that, is the question of David versus Goliath. So the question of decentralized energy versus centralized energy. And, maybe to kick us off, in your long history as an energy activist, a climate activist, but also and significantly a member of the German parliament, and as such, one of the fathers of the renewable energy law, the first person I understand in Germany to have ever established a feed-in tariff in Germany. Maybe you want to share a bit of your personal story, how you got where you are, and what you are currently entertaining as a network of people working every day on their energy independence, no matter whether we have state regulation or UN process or not. So, Hans Josef, without much ado, I would give you the floor. Tell us what brought you into this your renewable energy world and how your journey went until here.
Thank you, Martin, for the introduction. Um, Thank you for giving me the floor. It is a long history. Please interrupt me when I talk too long. This is for everyone necessary to hear indeed the today's possibilities. But indeed, it is important to reflect to the past and to show how strong the community engagement can change the world. Most don't believe that. They believe only the politicians can change the world, and they do not do it. And today we see a world with more autocrats financed by the fossil and nuclear industry, and they're doing their business, and the world flows more and more to a way down, destroying humankind society with heating up the earth, or into wars and wars more and more, with dependency on oil and gas and cutting oil and gas like in Cuba. And we see emergency in Cuba, and we see emergency in Ukraine with destroying. Oh, I must not tell you so plenty how the world is. We should speak how can we change the world. And the COP, the United Nations Climate Conference, cannot do it. For me, it was clear since the beginning, because it is the most hardest and nearly impossible way to bring all the nations of the world to a paper to sign it when it really makes climate protection, because it is against the biggest business of the world, against the fossil business. Therefore, we can change the world only from bottom up with the people, and the possibilities are much more. My life shows it. I was a young student in the 70s of the last century, and I see that the OPEC cut its oil consumption for the world. We had a big disaster. I learned oil dependency brings wars and problems. And I learned in my physics study the sun brings 10,000 times more energy to the earth than humankind needs per year. And I thought in the 70s, what are we crazy? We use destroying. And I learned another sentence shortly after that, Jimmy Carter. We bring peace to USA with decentralized, dispensed, home, renewable energies. He was so right. When Ronald Reagan, financed by the oil business, would not win the elections, we would have a much better world. When Jimmy Carter would have the chance for a second election. That shows that politics is indeed important to organize it. But politics can only do anything when from bottom up, the people makes him possible for that. So in this time, in the 70s, I built up a house and I did anything what everyone told to me it is impossible. You cannot create renewable energies on your house. I did it. And afterwards, I learned on my house how wonderful a photovoltaic system is. It was in 1991. Very expensive. Oh, what I would love with my children to go to holidays, but I told them we must build up a photovoltaic system. It was it was a wonder. All medias came. What is doing these crazy people here? And then I wanted to bring this photovoltaic system into a business model. And we had in Germany, mostly in Bavaria, hundreds solar communities already, not on business level, but on association level. And they organized in their villages, in the town, small advertising, they influenced them, they created the first small business people with photovoltaics and with wind as well, and with biogas and others. And this was a big community. They were influenced from, oh, we could see how the disaster in nuclear is. Look to Chernobyl in Ukraine. They destroyed the half of the country. And look to the wars and the OPEC. They cut the oil consumption. We go out. We want renewable energies. So we created introduction of that. And we created the first thinking, how can we make it on a political level? And we introduced it on local level. And in my hometown, it was the first hometown in 93. We decided for a feed-in tariff for photovoltaics. The local grid operator had to pay for everyone who want bring electricity to the grid 1 Deutsche Mark per kilowatt hour. And I could manage it. I learned with that it is possible. I created the first business-driven solar community in the world. And we invested 15 kilowatt photovoltaic. 15 kilowatt on 5 houses. It was a world wonder. All the medias came. What is such a town? 15 kilowatt photovoltaics. It seems to be impossible. And I learned the legislation. I learned the business.
I'm listening to something.
Yeah. Sorry?
I'm listening to something.
Yeah. I learned about that, and I learned how to create a national law. We need a national law, and I was elected to the German Bundestag because of my activities on the community level, on the local, on the grassroots level. That made me able that the Greens said, oh, he is a good guy, he should come to the Bundestag. And so I formulated immediately when I was in the Bundestag, some months later, I formulated the first principles for the feed-in tariff law. And together with Hermann Scheer and others, we could introduce it against the strong opposition of the nuclear and fossil business. They told to us that it's bullshit, this is non-economic, it is, you know, all the arguments. And
Hans Josef, before we come to the federal level, maybe, and apologies for interrupting, maybe you want to tell the story how to get a feed-in tariff when there is not even a national law. How did that work?
Yeah, it was on local level. The local communities were allowed to do that. It was not easy. We had to organize it on the state level in Bavaria, because the state level was there was the laws how the community power can operate that, the grid operator there. And we influenced the Bavarian government with a lot of things. I cannot spread this here. And it was allowed to do that. And
Fantastic.
there is one important point, what I tell you, what's the, what's the ability with the community power can make. We immediately after the introduction in Hammelburg, my hometown in Aachen and in Freising, immediately 23 and more towns decided the same on a local level to follow this example. And then when we introduced the law in Germany with the feed-in tariff law, then basically all the communities everywhere they had the ability and the preparation on the grassroots level with introducing we want to have solar, we bring you the business. So we had the situation that Bavaria with the solar communities about 100 influenced the people, and in 2010 in Bavaria stood more photovoltaic systems than in US and Japan together. Only in Bavaria. It was only the grassroots movement from bottom up to influence the people to introduce and combined with a national law. And the national law was only possible with the influence of the bottom up from the people, from the grassroots people who did it and influenced that.
Now, can I ask you, at that time when you started, you said 91 basically, there wasn't much in terms of battery storage available. And the argument against photovoltaics, of course, was always, so what is going to happen in winter? What's going to happen at night? How did you manage to combine biomass and wind and photovoltaic? And how reliable have these systems proven to be on the local level?
First answer is economy. We were accused one Deutsche Mark and half dollar is much too expensive. How can you pay such a high amount per kilowatt hour to an introducer? We told them, look to our German grid system. In the summertime, in the noon, the most consumers take out electricity from the grids, and then gas power must introduce a lot of them. And this peak gas power is double expensive than the photovoltaic. We bring immediately with an expensive photovoltaic system the cheaper system peak load in summertime to the grid. They did not love to hear that, but it was reality. We were from the beginning cheaper than the business from the others. Yes, and then the argument, what will we do in wintertime? And we have also peaks there, and therefore we told and introduced into the national law, renewables is not only photovoltaic. Renewable is also wind power, and the most wind power in Germany is flowing in the wintertime. So it is a little bit balancing already the solar when we have less solar. And then we have stored energy from bioenergy. You can earn the agriculture results, vegetable oil, and bring it to the biogas station. And the biogas station can run only in wintertime when we have the heat need and we have less electricity. And then when the biogas station brings the electricity, it is unbalancing. Hydropower helps also. Most hydropower runs in Germany in wintertime when we have less summertime. We can geothermal also add, and therefore we introduced all the renewable energies and make a mix of them. And we had also in the view that batteries and other storage system, hydropump power stations and others can help to balance as well. And this is nothing new. In the 90s, we had the problem that the nuclear power and the coal power run only in the same time, the whole day. But the consumption is fluctuating and not
Yeah.
balanced in a ground basic. And therefore, they introduced hydropump powers to run controlled every hour the same. And the hydropump brings the very expensive peak load system. That's nothing new to balance it and to use
Yeah.
the things. And so it's very old.
And of course, demand side management also play a role. So if you have in the community big consumers and you are able to synchronize them with the energy production, that's very auspicious. I'm happy to see questions already in the chat, and I'm also very happy to see Hunter nodding her head because it seems like many lessons are applicable. I have quick two questions here from Iliad and from Olaf. I start with the one from Iliad because he said, basically, if I describe it correctly, when you had such an auspicious start with feed-in tariffs, why did Germany stop sponsoring photovoltaics? And why did that then the industry collapse in Germany when, as we all know, China built up a big photovoltaic industry? Um, Olaf wants to know about the current economic policy and Minister of Economy's Reiche's approach to that. We might be coming to that later, but I thought this is a good moment for Iliad's question to come in. So, what went wrong after such an amazing start?
Yeah, very easy to answer. The influence of nuclear and fossil industry, nothing else. And they organized it. They could see that the running renewable energies in the first decade from 2000, when we introduced the feed-in tariff law, that we had an exponential growth rate. When we would have run with this exponential growth rates going on, everyone could see we have in 2020 100% renewable electricity in Germany. And 100% renewable electricity means no business with coal power, no business with gas power, no business with nuclear power. That's all is gone. And that's a conflict what we have in the world. And therefore, they introduced it. They made campaigns to accuse renewables to be too expensive. I told you it wasn't, never expensive, and it was much cheaper. But the problem was renewables were not invested by the conventional utilities. 70% of all investment into renewable power in Germany came from new actors. Private people with their roofs, with photovoltaics, farmers with wind power and with biogas stations, new, small, and medium companies, startups who invested. 70% of all the ownership of renewables is in the hands of private people and not of the utilities. And that's a problem. They accuse us to be expensive, and the minister Altmaier in this time with his state secretary Reiche, she was it already in 2012, amended the Renewable Energy Act that the business of photovoltaics declined. The investors could not earn money. The feed-in tariff was too low and some other principles. And though we lost the solar industry in 2010, 8 of the 10 biggest solar industries were German. Today, under the 50 biggest is no German. So that's the result. They destroyed a coming economy. They destroyed 100,000 jobs. And today, Minister Reiche, again elected, is willing to do the same. She wants to amend the Renewable Energy Act. We see now the first proposal, and it is very, very serious in Germany to make the rest. But in the world, it will not help because we have China and India, and other countries, mostly in Asia, and even in US with photovoltaic and with wind power investment, not with offshore. That's biggest problem because of Trump. He want to cancel it. But solar runs again. Now renewable energies is the cheapest option, even together with batteries, solar plus battery, wind plus battery, produce cheaper electricity than a gas power station, a coal power station, a nuclear power station. And therefore, now it is business driven. And
Yeah.
countries like Germany who want to avoid that, they will lose the industry. They bring cheap, not cheap, but expensive electricity from gas power station to the industry, and they become more and more um, they cannot compete with a foreign industry like in China. They get
Mm.
cheaper energy with renewables.
So
And
basically, you're saying that the German government invested a lot of money into renewables, into solar, but didn't actually use it themselves for the public buildings and everything. Do I understand you correctly like that? Or
well, I
Yes,
was going to Iliad.
that,
Um,
that is correct, but only partly. We have some mayors in local in towns. They made very good programs for renewable energies, and therefore on public building you can see indeed photovoltaics and others, but not in the amount what is in the average all over the houses and the
yeah.
roofs.
And maybe we should be adding that Germany's biggest climate problem is still lignite-fueled power station. And just last week, one of the three remaining lignite mining installations basically announced that they stop operations 4 years ahead of schedule. And that is simply because of the economics. They're basically saying renewable energy is cheaper, so our business model doesn't add up anymore. And that actually is fading out fossil fuels, not because of regulation, because as you said, the current legislation is more fossil fuel friendly than it was before, but simply because of the economics. But I wanted to pick up on one point and maybe bring Hunter in the conversation also. And that point is, and I found that staggering, that 70% of renewable energy is in the hands of unusual actors. So it's decentralized, small communities, even individuals. And here lies, and ironically, the collapse of the solar industry in Germany helped boosting the Chinese solar industry, which is now a world leader and makes it affordable for basically everyone to invest in renewable energy. Now, COPx, I should be saying, Hunter is leading COPx, and COPx purpose is to get people to organize their communities, to have people thinking collectively in their social context. What can we do? What can we do to invest in renewable energy, to become more energy independent, to become more climate friendly? And what I found amazing, Hans Josef, of your story is that when you started doing all this, there was no regulation, there was no UN process, there was no national legislation, and you made it happen anyway. And so maybe I hand over to Hunter at that point to ask you a question, because I think for the COPEX community, that question, how do we start as individuals? What can we do if we are living in a country where maybe feed-in tariffs are not existing, or it made deliberately difficult to produce renewable energy? And I know that Hunter herself has built renewable energy installations at a time when this was still an outlandish idea. So, Hunter, maybe you want to fire a question to Hans Josef about community organization and how you managed to get the people behind you.
Well, what COPx is committed to do, and I should stress, COPx was not my idea. I am a servant to it. It was the idea of a very senior UN official who, at a time when I was going to quit, said, the UN can never solve this problem. That's the pin from COP3. That's the pin from COP30. That's 30 years of talk and no action. Back in the, late 80s, we put solar at Rocky Mountain Institute. Horribly not cost effective. When I moved over to the eastern slope of Colorado and got a small amount of cash, I said, we're putting solar on. My husband said, it'll never pay for itself until it flooded in our area. Our neighbors were without power for 4 days. We had power and said, come on, charge your cell phones, put your meat in our fridge. My husband said, I understand the business model. So I think one of the ways that we sell this is resilience, is genuine security, is community security. But Hans Josef, I am desperately curious. How did you organize this? What did you just talk to your neighbors? Did you build an organization? For all of us listening, we all need to learn now at this time of the poly crisis, or call it what you will. How is it that we together can begin to tackle these issues?
Yeah, you must speak with the people. You must organize information events. There are plenty of them. In former time where we had no internet, we did it in live, in all towns, in all villages, to make presentations and to make anything else. Now it is easier. We can make video conferences and we can organize it by internet. And that's what COPx will doing. And that's very important. Bring the people together with the information. We have plenty people in the world who are already experienced how to do it. They can and should share it with the people who want to know how can we do it. That's the most important thing. And GovX will do that. On this platform, you can bring the very important and successful examples, and others learn from these examples. And then when you combine them, when anyone is asking in Ukraine, how can we make a community power? And he finds one in Germany and he can phone him or send him an email. And could you help us? We want to learn from you how to do it. That's what we have to organize. And this is not only solar, it is everything what we need for climate protection. How can I create my own food in my garden? How can we make forestry in the world, what we need everywhere? And how can we make a new plastic from Algiers, from the marine? How can we do that? And all these things, what brings together the technologies and the knowledge from the people to organize it. And this works. One sentence to China. All people believe this is only Chinese regulation. Yes, this is a basic. The Chinese government wanted to have clean air because they had only a black sky in the big cities over decades. And they wanted to have blue sky. And that was a basic for Xi Jinping and for all the others. We want to have clean energies to make the sky blue. And they made the laws. I was often in China and introduced them the basics of the feed-in tariff, and they adopted it. And then was a basics there for the people to do it. The people did it. Very interested people, very educated people, people who want to bring a clean air to their cities, to their towns with photovoltaics, with systems, and even with e-cars, with e-cycles and others. All the polluting should vanish. And they were excited and they did it. And they made conferences under them and with economics. Even in China, it is from bottom up to organize this under the good framework that supported that.
Yes, and there is so much creativity in these renewable energy circles. People with the most clever energy solutions, using their car as energy storage, having backup systems. And I understand this wealth of knowledge sits also with the community that you are entertaining, Hans Josef, and we are very happy to connect. Very specific, and I say that with all respect and appreciation, nerdy questions also to you. I have a whole set of remarks and questions here from Susan Tackelberg and from Sharon Abreu and from Paul Srivaslava. And I see that you can unmute yourself and ask your questions. So if any of you want to come in, we are happy to take your comments. Sharon, I see you're sharing your experience from Washington State. Maybe you want to come in for a quick comment. I can unfortunately only see 5 users at a time. So if I don't see or hear you, just unmute yourself and do come in if you want.
Okay, thank you so much. Is this a good time?
Perfect. Come in, Sharon.
Yay. Well, yeah, well, I live in the state of Washington, and we are we have a reputation for being a really progressive state, but we're not as progressive as I would like us to be to live up to that reputation. Uh, and over the last few months, a bunch of very astute people here have been working against state legislation to construct SMRs, the small nuclear reactors, small modular nuclear reactors. And, I know that Hunter has inspired me for many years now, pushing back against more nuclear. I mean, what is it, Hunter? 50 years you've been fighting against this, right? And so the same old arguments keep coming around. Oh my God, we need nuclear to fight the climate crisis. Blah, blah, blah. So we've been pushing back against this legislation to build new nuclear reactors. And what it doesn't say in the legislation, but there are a couple of words in there that astute people know how to read into those words. Words like public, words like private. And I was contacted to say, hey, can you help us push back against this legislation? Because what it's for is not just to build new nuclear plants, it's to build new nuclear plants so that they can supply all of their energy to Amazon for the AI data centers that it wants to construct in Washington and Oregon. And by the way, the taxpayers would be paying for this construction and then not having the energy. So meanwhile, we're in the process of trying to get four dams on the Lower Snake River breached so that we don't extinct the Chinook salmon and the southern resident orcas. And so we're trying to push back against, oh my God, we need these four dams, which don't produce much energy. And it's just, but we're constantly pushing for renewables. And we know that that's the way to go. And we're fighting against the public utility districts, and we're fighting against even our own energy cooperative here on Orcas Island when it comes to the dams. It's just like, well, it's this constant fight for language and for big time reality checks. But we're fighting and we're winning. At least on the nuclear front, we have some of that legislation is not going to be picked up this year. It may come back next year, but it's some of it at least is dead for this legislative session. So
Thanks, Sharon.
thank you for doing this, and I will be sharing this webinar widely. Thank you.
Wonderful. And as they say, politics is the constant drilling on hardwood. And, ultimately you drill a hole in that piece of hardwood. I see other people who ask questions, including Paul, who has his camera on. Paul Trivastava. I don't know, Paul, whether you want to come in, and let me introduce Paul. Paul is the co-president of the Club of Rome, and that is certainly a big name in the environmental world ever since the limits of growth that came out more than 50 years ago. And here is a possibility to grow without damaging nature and infrastructure. Paul, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Martin. And thank you, Hunter, for organizing this conversation. And thanks to Hans Josef for a really very compelling story of how this can be made to happen. It is such a powerful and aspirational tale that we would all like to emulate it in one way or another. And of course, there are many questions about what of it is transferable to different parts of the world, etc. But I'm going to move away from there because I did put a question there. There are new challenges now, and the problems are not the same that they were in the 1990s. But my question is going to be a little bit different, and that is that all energy, renewable, non-renewable, is basically an enabler of human consumption. It just increases consumption of everything else. And we already know that our material resource balance is now out of balance. And we don't even have enough resources to meet the Sustainable Development Goals requirements, according to the new IRC report. And AI is the new consumer in town. It is going to consume many, many more times that the energy that we consume for our current systems, however inadequate they are. So, what should communities and individuals be thinking in terms of total consumption? Of course, we need to resist these AI centers, as Sharon pointed out in her note and also in her remarks. But what are your thoughts, having been so effective in community organizing and individual action? What are our responsibilities for reducing overall consumption, rejecting some of the technologies that are going to amp it up even further? Thank you, Hans Josef.
Also first of all, the sun shines 10,000 more energy to the earth what humankind needs. We could even create with renewable energies double so high energy consuming with AI centers and others. It could be possible when we want to do it, but we should not make it because we need to create new technologies. When I look to the newest research from chip technology with light, for example, they are much more efficient, these sorts of chips, and much faster. That means even when we create new chip technology and technology with computers and others, we could have AI centers with a much reduced energy demand. So we should boost this research results to come fast into the consumption. And when we have it, when we have the AI, we should use it to help us to boost the communities and help us to spread the information. It is much easier AI driven and underlined than that we have to read and combine everything else on a traditional way. AI can help us. So we should use the new technologies for that way. And then I think we have a chance to overcome the influence of the fossil and nuclear industry who pollutes everywhere in the world the mind of the people, they acknowledge with their frames and others. So we should organize it. At the moment, Martin, let me help. I see one of the participants
Yes,
who is
yes, I have.
I see Dave Rennie is included here. Hello, Dave. I hope you can hear me. He is the president of ISIS. He is very, very informed of the possibilities from bottom up. He is a good friend of mine and of Hermann Scheer. I want to mention him. We together organized with other parliamentarians in the German parliament. Hello, Dave. And it is important. He is president of ISIS. He has a lot of acknowledge. And so we have plenty people all over the world. They can do it and can support it. And when we can all combine them on the platform of COPx, then we have a wonderful basic.
Thank you, Hans Josef. And while you were speaking, Olaf came in from Berlin sharing that he lives in a passive house with community photovoltaic and individual photovoltaic, now aiming at actually taking heating into their own hands. Now, I live in Berlin. Recently, we had minus 12 degrees centigrade. So if that is possible in an individual house, then I think we really got a model to follow. And I want to keep from this exchange also what Paul said and Sharon, the question of asking who is actually consuming the energy that is being produced there? Who benefits from it? I think that's an absolute key question. And Sharon, you also mentioned the job of educating people and telling them these things that for many of us who've been working in the field for many years come natural. I think that's also an essential point. Now, I'm looking for more questions. As said, fire them in the chat or just say, "Can I have the floor?" And I would give it to you. But I have one for Hans Josef I always wanted to ask you, and that's the advantages in storage capacity. We have now possibilities not only, as you mentioned earlier, pumping upstream water for hydropower when you need it, but real battery storage that you can use on a household level. To what extent is that changing the game? What do you think about those? Is there maybe also a second life for car batteries? How do you see that point of battery storage being a solution or a red herring?
All storage systems are very important, and they have different possibilities to help to balance the fluctuations of solar and wind. One storage is bioenergy. You can earn it in summer and use it in wintertime. That's a storage contribution. You can use seasonal storage for heat storage. You can bring a lot of solar heat in the summertime down to the ground into a heat storage and take it out with heat pumps to the houses, to the villages in the wintertime. You can use storages with pressed air. Chinese do it, the first storages with pressed air in the underground. You can bring new hydro pump power stations to the former mining areas, in the coal mining areas. You need to not to bring it to surface. We have the possibility set. And this shows that we have so plenty possibilities on different ways with storages, but the batteries, they are the king of the storages. They can not be a seasonal storage. Batteries are a short-term storage, but we need to balance short time, only solar in the day and darkness in the night. And batteries bring light from solar to the night. And therefore, batteries are very important. In plenty regions of the world, you can make 100% renewables all over the year, every hour, only with solar and batteries in southern areas. In the northern hemisphere, like in Germany, in Canada, and in others, it cannot be realized only with solar and with batteries because we have darkness and we have a lot of cold winter times, and therefore we need to organize more. And therefore, use the batteries for more than only in your house to use the batteries also for the grids. You can use the batteries in the running cars, not only in the cars when the batteries is end of life for the cars and you can use it a second time in a factory for the grid operators. Yes, this is a very wonderful possibility. But you can use your cars with bidirectional loading today with the existing cars. And we have the first examples in Germany. EDF and Renault makes it, and we have also Daimler and E.ON. That brings the first examples. You can take a car with bidirectional loading. You have a smart meter on your house, and you charge your car only when the net is full with electricity, and therefore the electricity price is cheap. And then you can use your batteries when you do not drive and bring the electricity back to the grid and do it in time when it is very expensive, when no solar is in the grid. And then you can earn money with your car. So it is a possibility. It is completely otherwise. You should not try to earn money with your combustion car with oil. It is impossible. But you can earn money with a bidirectional loading with your electric car to balance the grid with it. So the possibilities are so great. And yeah.
Let me say that again. because when you have bidirectional loading and in an electric vehicle, you don't even need to have solar installations or whatever. It's just the simple fact that you have a powerful battery that you can put at the disposal of an electricity company that makes you earn money while having an electric car. I think this is one of these amazing opportunities that just too few people are even aware of, and that we should spread. And also where that regulation is not existing, that you also can use your car battery to feed back energy at peak load after having loaded it at time of very low load. So for cheap electricity prices is a great example of how everybody can really contribute to an energy transformation. Now you
But
mentioned
there's
bio.
only one problem we must mention, and the problem is not on a technology way. It is on the way of the business. All
Yeah.
the consumers would love to do that, but not the utilities. They want to produce in times where electricity is very expensive, new gas power station, and want to sell a very expensive electricity to the consumers. They
Yeah.
have another interest, the fossil industry. And that's the obstacle against all these new things, what would be so wonderful to introduce.
Fantastic. I have two questions or basically a remark and a question in the chat. One is from Jörg from Youth for the Planet, um, mentioning an educational program enabling young people to build microgrids and working in Nigeria and India. I don't know, Jörg, whether you want to talk about that. I'm happy to give you the floor. And while you think about whether you want to come in, I'm also mentioning for Hans Josef to prepare a question from God, where he said, can you speak more about balancing agricultural grazing land use with renewable energy installation, both for the production of biomass, but also how does that balance out with solar and wind farms? But before we come to this question, I would like to give Jörg the floor, who I believe already unmuted. Please do come in.
Martin,
Yeah, yes.
if I could just briefly, we're coming up to the end of our hour. We can continue to go if you and Hans Josef are still available. And I also wanted to note to people that Zoom has over the past little while cleverly hidden the hand raising function, where you raise your hand to if you want to speak. It's actually hidden under the React button at the bottom of your screen. So if you look for the little heart icon at the bottom of the screen, you can raise your hand and get into the conversation more easily. Martin and Hans Josef, are you still available for another, 15 minutes after this hour is gone? I really wouldn't like to end this conversation now, just as it's getting going.
Paul, my apologies. I
Yes.
was planning for 90 minutes anyway. I would just say we
Yeah.
go on for a maximum of 90 minutes and we see how many questions and requests for the floor we have. And I see the chat is teeming. So maybe, Jörg, you want to
Perfect.
come in and share your experience about your educational program.
Thanks.
Yes. Just briefly, because I know Hunter already knows about it. I have been spreading the news at COP 30, and we will manage to do that at COP 31 again. The idea is, and it's not just an idea; it's already happening. It has started to actually train young people in university aligned courses with the Sun Evolution Institute to become solateurs. So when they study English or media or engineering, they can alongside have this um, additional certificate so that then people trust them to actually do meaningful installations. And we will then support them with our partners to get access to material resources and international learning. So this is something that we will go to the community, like people like you, again, by asking them for, let's say, participation in a webinar to really convey state-of-the-art information, even to the small states, the Bauchi state in Nigeria, yeah? So that people really feel connected to this global development. And so at the moment, we are developing this so far that by the end of the year, this will be the first projects will be starting, and we are using solar powered media bikes that are connected via internet to actually make that happen. So the students use the bikes to go to their villages. They have material on board. They then show little films uh, educating the population about what will be happening, what they can expect. And then we found that the major impact is really to help people to understand what they can do with the electricity they receive, so that they learn how to use it in a meaningful way for enhancing their own life, the life of the village, and manage this energy in a meaningful and very social way, so that they don't get into conflict about energy, but into constant communication of who needs what and when and where. So this is the basic idea. And once this is installed in one university, and we are having the Polytechnical University of Bauchi State at the moment as our starting point there, then we want to plant it out to other places as well, so that they can have the same system starting there, and eventually all run by the people in the country itself. So that's
Perfect.
my short interjection there. And I'm from Hamburg in Germany, and I know all about Hans Josef's policies. I knew Hermann Scher, and I'm a filmmaker who actually made a lot of films about energy as well. So that's my bit of my background, and that's why I'm so engaged in terms of education and learning. Okay,
Excellent.
thank you.
When you're engaging with these universities, think about maybe you want to do a local COPx event. We are happy to feature
Yeah.
that website so others can be inspired by your example, and we would snowball with the good ideas and the inspiration people like yourself are providing. Now, I promise to
Yeah,
speak
thank you.
about the idea of, or basically the questions around biomass and renewable energy production, and how is that balancing out to nature protection and environmental protection. Maybe Hans-Josef, you also want to mention concepts like agrovoltaics and latest developments here. Over to you.
Yeah, there is a big discussion over bioenergy, and indeed we have from plenty big companies in agriculture sector indeed unenvironmental and biodiversity destroying methods of agriculture. That cannot be the target. We cannot cut rainwoods for bioenergy and not for food like soya and others. This is destroying the earth and it must be forbidden. And plenty people believe that bioenergy can produced only in the way like an intensive agriculture, like the big companies do. That's not true. And they argue then, oh, you should make not bioenergy from agriculture because the energy result from 1 square meter is much less from a photovoltaic system. That is a nonsense because combine it and make energy from the same agriculture with photovoltaics, with agrophotovoltaics, and with bioenergy. And when you use the right bioenergy, most important is vegetable oil, sunflower, rapeseed, or some others, then you have a plant that not only produce energy with the oil, 2/3 is a breast cake, that comes out, it is high, rich of um, food. We can use it for animal food, we can use it for human food and others. So the vegetable oil is not an either or food or energy, it is both together and we can use it. And this vegetable oil is so important to balance the winter time in the northern hemisphere. I will tell it you on a project what I try to implement in Ukraine. Ukraine, you know, is destroyed by the Russians in the aggression of the energy, and they destroyed in this cold winter time, they had minus 20 degrees, and they destroyed every energy system. Not only the gas power station and the coal power station, and not only the grid, but as well as the oil pipelines, the gas pipelines, and everything. And so the Ukrainians have no energy, nearly no energy. Now they try European Union to spend some photovoltaics with batteries. Yes, it helps in summertime, in spring, in autumn, but not in wintertime. They need in wintertime an energy, and they get a lot of generators spent from the European Union, and the generators cannot run because they can run only with diesel, and there is no diesel available. The only way is you go to the agriculture and take your vegetable oil. Converted generators, tractors, and others to use the fuel from the village to the village. The farmers bring it themselves, and they can do it. And the Ukraine has so plenty vegetable oil, and the destroying of the harbors, they cannot bring it to the world market. They don't know what to do with them. And we want to help them to create new technologies, and the generators, the generation machines, the tractors, land machines can run with vegetable oil. And then it is much easier. And then they can have electricity for the hospitals during wintertime, summertime with solar and batteries, and wintertime with cogeneration with vegetable oil. That's a solution. Decentralized and combine it. And you can use it in bioenergy way. It's on a high sustainable way, and that's the direction what we should go to.
Hans Josef, I'm jumping in here because Iliad came in and said, what about vegetable oil collected from restaurants and deep fryers, all the fast food chains?
That is an important contribution, no question.
So finally, fries with a good conscience. That's a piece of good news. I want to jump for a second to Dave Rene, who hasn't come in so far, who basically says, and I'm quite surprised about that, he says, my problem is also excess solar energy. What can I do with it? Can you tell me more about the energy storage systems? And I think it's a wonderful example, and Jörg alluded to that, that the question people need to learn about is, what do I actually do with the energy? And I think that's sort of a mind-changing narrative if we don't always look at scarcity of energy, but the potential abundance when energy becomes much more of a consumer good rather than a commodity. I also wanted to pick up on the second issue. I mean, Ukraine is, of course, a stark example, but decentralized energy and bringing consumption and production closer together is certainly also building resilience. Think some years back when parts of the US grid basically went dark because heavy ice load on the transmission lines caused some of them to collapse, or think about the Caribbeans where a tropical storm can of course erase all of the energy system as long as it's dependent on diesel generators and centralized energy production, which really makes very little sense in the Caribbeans. Now I have more in the chat that I can follow at the same time. But maybe, Dave, you want to come in and maybe share your experience of the cabin. I don't want to put you on the spot, so if you don't want to, please, you don't have to. But if you want to speak about your experience, and I understand you're also documenting in a Substack, this is your moment.
Yeah, well, thank you. And Hello, Hans Josef. Nice to see you again after
Hello.
a few
Yeah.
weeks ago when we were in Abu Dhabi together. Yeah, we built a cabin that was clearly more cost effective to build off the grid than trying to connect to the nearest XL power line, which I didn't want to do anyway. And but we didn't we probably didn't put as much effort as we should have up front in designing the size of the system. And we ended up with a 7.3 kilowatt solar system and a 32 kilowatt battery storage system. And what we're finding is that even, for example, the last few days when we had snow up there and the panels were covered with snow, I have to turn the temperature way down on the house in order to keep the batteries from draining out and shutting off the power, because once they get down below 20% state of charge, they automatically shut the power off to the house, and then I lose everything until it can come back on, which only happens after the snow melts, unless I use an automatic grid generator, which I'm really trying to avoid using. I want this to be a completely 100% renewable energy project. So I've been addressing or thinking about this long duration energy storage issue quite a bit, because the costs that I have run into for any options seem to be very high for just an individual homeowner. But I know people are experimenting with different schemes, and there's probably things I could be doing that I'm not aware of that would be lower cost. But I just thought I would point out that we often have far in excess of solar, which is being curtailed from our house. In other words, it's just not going anywhere. I don't have any place to put it. I charge my car there in the summertime, but even that's not going to make up for it. And in the wintertime, I keep the house as warm as I can when I do have sun, so that it doesn't, and it's a very efficient house, so I don't lose the heat too fast, but eventually I do. And so I have this issue of a few times out of the year under high snow and cloudy conditions and cold conditions that I have to find an alternative means to keep the house warm and keep the power from shutting off.
Great.
So I'm open to any suggestions, or you're welcome to comment on my Substack. Or Hunter, it's great to see you, and thank you for organizing this. Hunter doesn't live too far from me, so
Perfect.
we can always meet up sometime.
Dave, we should chat. I deal with it by one, having a good bank of batteries, two, having loads in the house that I can turn on or turn off depending on what the bats are doing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good one.
And
yeah,
I think
go ahead.
it's important, Dave, when you give your experience, your example, and you have so plenty ones, to the COPx internet site. Then the world, they can learn it, they can connect it, they can learn from you and others. So that's the idea behind COPx, to share all this acknowledge, to make it easier for the world.
I will do that. Thank you.
Fantastic. And I was just about to say, Hunter, let's put a link to Dave's Substack on our website so people can also read more about that. Now, the chat took a very surprising and very interesting turn, because now we are speaking about culture. Sharon has shared her example about climate monologues, a theatrical project, and Timothy has shared a dream, which I find a wonderful dream, which is powering concerts with renewable energy and starting with a one-man show and a solar panel that converts into 110 volts, so you can play and gig wherever you want to be. I understand there are already bands who are paying attention to how the energy is being produced. And also, in places like Denver, where Hunter doesn't live so far from, there is an abundance of sunshine and certainly lots of industrial buildings. So there is endless rooftop space in order to power for culture. But also, and I see how slowly this is coming around. It seems still to be difficult to talk as an artist about climate change without going into a doom and gloom scenario. I watched, of course, Don't Look Up and liked it a lot, but I think there is a great space for songs, for poetry, for visual arts for movies to talk about and to inspire people to take their own action. There is one movie, and I'm just failing to recall the name of it, of a boy who basically in Africa built his own windmill to generate electricity and basically help the entire village out. We will find it out and share the link here. I see more in the chat that I'm able to read while I'm talking here. So maybe one of the people who want to come in, I see, Dave, you want to come in again, or Gord? Would you like to speak? I just see that you're bringing an example from Alberta in Canada. Gord, would you like to come in? Okay, but I would then go back to Sharon about the climate monologues. It sounds amazing, and maybe you want to briefly speak about what these climate monologues are about. I don't know whether Sharon can hear us.
Oh, sorry. I've been an environmental educator since 1993. I semi-accidentally joined a very musical environmental group while I was studying classical voice in New York City. So I've been using music, for environmental education for a lot of years. And I was at the UN Commission on Sustainable Development in 2006, and I met a woman named Maria Gano.
Me
From
too. I was there too.
I I must
Go
have seen
ahead.
you.
Yes.
I had students actually singing there from another show that my partner and I created called Penguins on Thin Ice, and we had students. The Youth Caucus performed some of those songs there at that UN meeting. But anyway, so I started hearing stories from people like Maria Gano and other people whose I wanted to tell their stories. I wanted more people to hear their stories. So, and I had been in a local production of Eve Ensler's Vagina Monologues. And so I thought, climate change is similar I should do the climate monologues because both of these shows have a similarity, which is that they're uncomfortable subjects for a lot of people. But if you go see the show, you'll be glad you did. So that's why I called it the climate monologues. And I interviewed people and I edited their interviews into short monologues and wrote a song for each one. And the song really serves to bring in, enhance the emotional aspect and also kind of enhance and review what you just heard in the monologue. And there's this awesome woman named Hunter Lovins, and I was like, I have to tell her story. As I had heard Hunter on Now with Bill Moyers, and then Hunter, you came out to the San Juan Islands to be the keynote speaker for a conference we had out here back in 2003 called Navigating Our Future, and I'm like, I have to become Hunter Lovins on stage. I have to become Hunter Lovins on stage, and okay, full disclosure, that's my most fun monologue that I do. And the show, the wonderful thing about the show is it's very basic. It's very simple. If I travel to do the show, there's no set. There's a couple of little props, a couple of costume pieces. If the lights go out, light a candle, we can do the show.
Amazing. Sharon,
and yeah.
I think I put you on the spot right here. We have a topic for next webinar, which is the arts and local climate action, and it would be amazing. I see you already there. I see Timothy contributing. I see you're contributing. This is an amazingly creative community, and I think it's all about creativity here.
Thank you.
I have so many
Francois Rogers, do you want to describe what you guys are doing in Hawaii? What Blue Planet has done is truly awesome.
Thanks, Hunter. A long time no see. Hunter was actually part of Hawaii's movement when we started in 2008. She came to Hawaii and we were part of the brain sort of a thinking tank behind it on how do we achieve this renewable energy. So just to make it short, in 2015, we were successfully able to pass a legislation in Hawaii. We became the first U.S. state to have 100% legislation to achieve by generation 100% by 2045. So that is still our goal in Hawaii. We did everything from community outreach, engaging with students, being in 1,000 classrooms a year, of course, lobbying. So the top down and the bottom up approach. So that seems to be going well. And we since then have expanded our operations outside of the US and teach other countries and islands around the world to do the similar thing. So basically road mapping. So today we're engaged with close to 50 countries, working with them directly. Now, the latest news is that our legacy piece, Hawaii, is now slipping backwards. We had the recent Maui fires that cost the state about $4 billion in lawsuits. And now they're finding a way in how to offset that. So the utility is responsible for two, and then the state is responsible for the other two. So now here comes JERA, which is a Japan-based energy company who does liquefied natural gas, and they're giving a handout to say, I'll pay off your debt in exchange for LNG importation. Naturally, it's going to cost a couple of $1 billion to build the infrastructure, everything from regasification to the docking system. And so we're a little bit in a pickle right now. We're trying to fight it on the media forefront, on the community awareness forefront, and of course the policy piece. But it's something that came to our shores, tried to come to our shores 7 years ago, and our governor then put his foot down and says, we're not doing that. But this governor that we have a little bit right now is deflecting and trying to say it's not my idea, but it might be good for the state. So I don't know if anybody has any great ideas, anybody that's strong in this area that could tell us that. Yes, this will be locked in for the next 30 years if we allow this to happen. If any 40, that's our biggest fear right now. So I know, Hunter, you shared this, how the nuclear suitcase thing is not a good idea. If you have anything similar to that for LNGs that we can use that could tell the state that, because we don't have enough expertise on the island, but for us, it's not just about Hawaii. The whole movement, including US, started here in Hawaii when we started this '08, and we cannot afford to tell the world that we failed. So I think if there's any advice, any steps we could take, please let us know. I'll appreciate it.
For certain, let me know how I can help, and maybe I should come back. Are you still in touch with the lawyer, Greg Ball? He and
Yes,
I helped
yes.
defeat the power plant on the Big Island and then the proposed one on Maui.
Yes, we are in touch. We also have people like Earth Justice. We have a lot of policy experts. I think what we're struggling right now is probably we need to mobilize the community as we did back in 2015 again. That was our biggest winner. I think when you have a couple of hundred kids at the state legislature lobby asking for renewable energy and they have to speak to their faces, I think that was a strong point that we made. They have to make a promise to the kids because it's their future. But right now they're breaking the promise. So I think we need to kind of bring that to the forefront. But
Yeah.
I think the other thing is that basically liquefied natural gas, they're selling it to the public, going out to all these places, doing presentations, calling it the cheaper and cleaner fuel than fossil fuel for
Yeah.
oil. So it's it's a real stretch right now, but we need to find
No,
a way
if you
to.
count the fugitive methanes from LNG or from natural gas, fossil gas, it is dirtier than coal.
Yeah.
It also, when used in a household, is bad for your health. Let me know if I should come back to the islands.
Yeah.
Yes, I think that would be a great idea. The other thing you can immediately maybe do is do an op-ed in our local newspaper that has a lot of mileage in our stuff. So if that could be done, that'll be great. Yeah.
All right, let's take that offline maybe because we are slowly coming to the end of this webinar. And natural gas is, I think, one of these many instances where we need to change the narrative and just speak about fossil gas because that is what it is. And Francois, what you just mentioned, a call for help. We are about to have a step change on our COPx website. As you can already see in this webinar, there is more motion than we can actually moderate, the two of us here. And so we want to introduce a peer-to-peer communication way where you could post directly your questions, your request for aid, but also your example. And we will soon be able to create sub-communities, or to be more precise, you would be able to create your own community to get the conversations moving forward. Before we wrap, I would love to give one last word to Hans Josef, our inspiration for today, and then I would like to hand over to Hunter again to talk you through on how to become a member of COPx. Spoiler, it's free and it doesn't commit you to anything you don't want to do. But before I do that, I give the last word to Hans Josef about what you took from this webinar and what you want people to take from this webinar, and then to Hunter for our COPx advertising block. Hans Josef, you have the floor.
Thank you, Martin. First of all, I want to underline your last contribution to the narratives. It is very important to make a clear language. Not oil is a problem. Fossil oil is a problem. Vegetable oil is a solution. Not gas is a problem. Fossil gas is a problem. Not biogas when you produce it in a sustainable way. Not coal is a problem. Biocoal is a solution. Biochar is a solution. And fossil coal is a problem. So create your language clear and address what you mean, and don't allow the fossil industry to influence us with narratives what do underline their interests. So that's one point, and that's important also for COPx at the internet side, that you look to the narratives, that you look to the influence. Don't allow the narratives renewable would be too expensive. No, they are the cheapest option, but the most people believe it would be too expensive and they use it. It is only a narrative from the fossil industry and the nuclear industry. So that's one task what we have in COPx, and the other is when you can manage it really to make every day 1,000 local conferences for climate conferences, every day 1,000 and 300,000 in the year. That's what we need, and that could help to make really to come away from the pathway to hell, what Antonio Guterres tells us. We want to have a pathway to the sky, to the heaven. Thank you.
Fantastic, Hans Josef. Thank you so much. And I need to say something. Some years back, I spoke to the chief executive of the second biggest advertising company on the planet. And of course, that gentleman was feeling bad because he makes millions of people buy things they don't need. But he told me one thing. He said, no matter how much money you invest in advertising, the most trusted source for people is still word of mouth. So we might not have the money to hire the biggest advertising companies on the planet, but we have trust and we have our networks of trust. And we can spread with word of mouth to the people we care about, to the people who trust us, what the real story is. And I think that is where a lot of power of COPx lies, like a mycelium, creating mushrooms popping up where you don't expect them. We want to be that network of people and extend the trust to people that we only meet now, so we can change the global narrative. But Hunter has been absolutely instrumental in taking COPx from an idea to something that is as real as this webinar. So I would love to give you the last word, Hunter, and what is COPx? How can people become part of it? And when will the next webinar with Sharon and others take place? Over to you, and no pressure.
Martin, thank you. We are doing these webinars at least once a month. The next webinar will be in March, And again, I will put out a mailing to everyone who is on the COPx registry, and you sign up at www.copx.global. We would love to have you, and invite all your friends. Word of mouth. This will work if everyone brings one. The heart of COPx is DOT. Do one thing. Every day, look yourself in the mirror and ask yourself, what's my dot for today? I have a standard dot. If I can't think of anything else, I will pick up one piece of trash and see that it gets properly recycled every day. Every one of us can do this, and invite your friends. Every one of us has a circle of about 20 people, family, coworkers, fellow students, wherever it is you are. There are about 20 people who look at what you do. So speak up. Tell them what you care about. Ask them what they care about. This isn't politics. This is all of us together building a climate-safe future. And we can do it. We have to do it. When we do it together, it's a hell of a lot of fun. So thank you, every one of you, for showing up, for doing all that you do. And I'll see you in the next webinar. Hans
Absolutely.
Josef, thank you particularly for all that you've done.
Thank
And
you.
Hans Josef has made it possible for us to hire some real professionals in communications. So watch the COPx website, watch our LinkedIn, watch our Instagram. We're creating a Facebook page, WhatsApp. You're going to start hearing about COPx a great deal more. So Hans Josef, thank you.
It was a pleasure.
Wonderful. Thank
You're
you.
Thank you
Delighted to meet you,
all of
Hans Josef, and thank you for all for
And
attending.
yeah,
Thanks
and
to
see you all in
everyone.
Antalya. Yeah.
Yeah.
Such a pleasure. Thank
Hey,
you.
Darlene.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Right.
So guys, I need to leave.
Martin,
It was
thank you. And thank you for everything.
Well, Paul, Hunter, thanks very much. I don't know, Hans Josef has already signed out, but that was fun and, enough material for 4 or 5 webinars. So very happy to continue here.
Yeah.
Yes, and we don't have to limit ourselves to one a month.
Absolutely.
As much as we have a target, this one came up as one as an opportunity, and so it it came together very quickly. So it's not a heavy lift to put it together, and for those of us who are around to facilitate them. So
And Hunter, it just proved what we were saying all along, that people have so much positive action to share, so many great ideas, so much inspiration. So let's harvest those and connect with the people from the webinar for the next webinars. And let's put that online as soon as we are able to with Philippa.
Yeah.
Yes.
Wonderful.
Yes, I will trim it slightly on the ends, and we'll post it to our COPx site.
Perfect. I need
Yeah.
to run. Thanks,
okay,
everyone. Paul,
bye,
Okay.
Martin. Thanks for
And
thanks for
Hunter, we
interviewing.
stay connected about COP31, huh?
We do. We do.
Yeah. So today we had an important meeting, and it will take place. We will run, and we will invite you, COPx, to perform something at Antalya
Thank you.
on a larger
Inshallah,
scale.
I'll be there.
Inshallah. Yeah. Okay.
Paul,
Bye.
thank you. Bye, all.
Bye, everyone.